Welcome back. Today we dive into the life of one of the most infamous crime lords of Harlem and Washington, D.C., Alpo Martinez. His story is filled with power, betrayal, and an unparalleled rise to the top of the drug world in the 1980s. Get ready for a deep dive into his life, his choices, and the legacy he left behind. And if you love true crime stories that reveal the dark secrets of the underworld, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to never miss a video. Let's get started. Join me as I dive into the life of Alpo Martinez and test myself to find out what really made him the infamous crime lord of Harlem and Washington, D.C. Alpo Martinez was not your typical street hustler. Born in East Harlem in 1966, he grew up in an environment of hardship and struggle, quickly learning that the streets offered an escape from poverty, if you were willing to pay the price. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Martinez had risen to the top, becoming one of the most feared drug lords not only in New York City but also in Washington, D.C., where he expanded his operations. His charisma and brutal tactics made him both respected and feared, a rare combination that kept him one step ahead of his rivals. During the height of Alpo Martinez's reign, crime rates in Harlem and Washington, D.C., skyrocketed to previously unimaginable levels. Entire neighborhoods were gripped by fear, held hostage by the violence and drug trade that Martinez helped fuel. But who exactly was this man behind the mayhem? And why does his name still send shivers down the spines of so many? Martinez wasn't just a kingmaker in his own empire. He forged alliances with infamous figures like Wayne Asilka Perry, a feared enforcer who played a key role in protecting Alpo's empire from competitors and law enforcement. Together, they created a criminal network that seemed untouchable. But Alpo's rise to power came at a cost: violence, betrayal, and ultimately the loss of any trust or loyalty among those closest to him. The drug trade in the 1980s and 1990s was brutal. Law enforcement struggled to keep up, and neighborhoods bore the brunt of the violence. As Alpo's empire grew, so did the number of bodies piling up on the streets. Yet despite police pressure and growing threats from rivals, Alpo continued to expand his operations. Money, power, and notoriety fueled his ambition, but deep down he knew it wouldn't last forever. During this time, individuals like Alpo Martinez had built powerful networks, fueling a devastating cycle of crime, fear, and addiction that had impacted countless lives. Police, often outnumbered and outgunned, faced incredible challenges as they sought to dismantle these vast criminal empires. Then came the turning point. On November 14, 1991, Alpo Martinez was arrested in Washington, D.C. for drug trafficking and murder. For many, it seemed like the end of an era. The investigation against him was extensive, involving years of surveillance and testimony from former associates. At the time, Alpo was considered a top priority for federal and local law enforcement, as his operations had contributed significantly to the violence and drug epidemic plaguing communities. His arrest marked a pivotal moment, not only for his criminal career, but also for the crime landscape in Harlem and D.C. The charges against Alpo were serious, including multiple counts of murder and distribution of large quantities of cocaine. With so many charges against him, the outlook was grim. He faced the prospect of multiple life sentences, virtually guaranteeing that he would never walk free again. It was at this moment, however, that Alpo made a shocking decision, one that would change his fate and the fate of many others. In exchange for a reduced sentence, Alpo agreed to become a government informant, cooperating with law enforcement and testifying against some of the same people he had once worked with. Faced with a life sentence, Alpo agreed to become an informant, testifying against his former associates in exchange for a reduced sentence. This choice destroyed his reputation in the drug world, where loyalty was paramount, and had devastating repercussions for those around him. Several high-profile gang members were arrested because of Alpo's testimony, altering the criminal landscape in both Harlem and D.C. His collaboration sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. Alpo's testimony was instrumental in securing convictions for several high-ranking members of his network, including feared figures who had seemingly been untouchable. This decision was seen as a betrayal by many in the drug trade, leading to a dramatic fallout that further damaged his reputation on the streets. For authorities, however, Alpo's testimony was a major victory, as it gave them an inside look at the operations and power dynamics of one of the most important drug networks of the time. Psychologically, Alpo Martinez was a complex figure, characterized by a unique combination of charm and brutality. Raised in poverty and hardship in East Harlem, Alpo developed a survival mentality early on. From the beginning of his criminal career, he demonstrated a keen strategic mind, earning the trust and loyalty of other men on the street. His ability to manipulate people was one of his most powerful weapons, making him a leader capable of building and sustaining a criminal empire. Alpo was known for his charismatic presence. He had a knack for convincing people and drawing them into his web, using his charm to get what he wanted. However, behind this confident and charismatic facade was a dark side, a ruthless man who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. For Alpo, violence was not just a means of control, it was almost a form of self-assertion. Many associates describe how Alpo would eliminate anyone he perceived as a threat, showing a complete lack of empathy and remorse for his actions. Alpo also had a deep need for recognition and respect. His thirst for power was not just for profit, he wanted to be recognized as a king of the streets, a name to be feared and respected. This need for approval led him to form strategic alliances, such as the one with Wayne Caperi, and to consolidate his control over entire areas. However, his thirst for power and desire to dominate knew no bounds, causing numerous betrayals and rifts with his own collaborators. The psychological turning point in his life came with his arrest in 1991. Faced with the prospect of a life sentence, Alpo showed a pragmatic and calculating side. He decided to become an informant, testifying against his former associates in exchange for a reduced sentence. This choice highlighted his opportunistic mentality and lack of loyalty to the criminal world he had helped build. His decision was a devastating blow to those who saw him as a strong and indestructible leader, transforming his image from king of the streets to a traitor in the eyes of many. And while Alpo's decision earned him a lighter sentence, it also branded him a traitor, changing his life forever. He lost respect, friends, and the empire he had built. His story remains a cautionary tale of ambition, betrayal, and the heavy cost of choices made in the world of crime. Today, the psychological profile of Alpo Martinez is a complex example of charisma, ruthlessness, and morality shaped by violence and the struggle for power. Alpo represents a figure who used manipulation and violence to climb the criminal pyramid but did not hesitate to sacrifice any value to save himself. Alpo's decision to cooperate ultimately led to a reduced sentence, sparing him the life sentence he had originally faced. However, it left him with a tainted legacy, seen by many as a traitor who prioritized self-preservation over loyalty. Alpo's story remains a complex tale of survival, betrayal, and the lengths people will go to escape justice, even if it means turning against the empire they once built. His decision to cooperate with authorities and testify against his former associates earned him a significant reduction in his sentence. In 2015, after serving over 20 years in prison, Alpo Martinez was released and placed in the Federal Witness Protection Program under a new identity. Once free, Alpo found himself in a changed world. His infamous reputation preceded him, and although he was officially in the protection program, it didn't take long for people to recognize him in public. Despite his past, Alpo was seen in his old neighborhoods, even frequenting Harlem, the place where he once built his empire and gained notoriety. This decision surprised many, as returning to Harlem increased the risk of being recognized, especially by those who still remembered his violent past or felt betrayed by his choice to cooperate with the authorities. The investigation into his murder raised questions, with some speculating that his past had finally caught up with him. Was it an act of revenge by those he had once betrayed, or simply a tragic brush with violence in Harlem? In February 2022, Shaquem Parker was arrested and charged with Alpo's murder, though he was acquitted in July 2024. Some suggest that the shooting was the result of road rage, but unanswered questions remain to this day. Alpo Martinez's death closed a dark chapter in the history of Harlem and the criminal underworld. His legacy remains complex. He was feared and despised, respected and betrayed. Thanks for watching this video. I'd love to hear what you think about Alpo Martinez's legacy. Do you see him as a ruthless crime lord, a survivalist, or something else entirely? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'm curious to hear what you think. And if you're interested in delving further into infamous criminal characters, be sure to check out my other videos for more stories like this. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future content. See you in the next video.